Welcome everyone to another Ref Brandon and the Todd Family YouTube video. Wherever you are, whatever you may be doing, thank you so much for making Ref Brandon and the Todd Family part of your day. We always greatly appreciate it. If you jump on here live on this Friday night, feel free to leave a comment in the comment section. Down below, make sure you give the video a like, a thumbs up, and if you have not yet subscribed, please do so and share the video on all social media platforms. Hey there, Eden. Glad to have you here on this Friday night. Somebody asked me the other day, I think it was Marcus, if I was going to do a video about the NFL draft, and I told him I do one every year, and I cover maybe not the whole first round, but the majority of the first round. And then a lot of years, that's not enough. A lot of years, there's enough talent coming out of college football to really go 3 or 4 rounds deep. This year, there just wasn't the talent pool there normally is. Normally you have 7 or 8 quarterbacks go in the first round. This year, that just didn't happen. So I might do one about, second round or second through 7th rounds, and I may just talk about some notable players that most folks will know just by hearing their name. But I do want to talk about the majority of the first round. I've got 27 picks. I've written down picks 1 through 27, and that's why I didn't do a video last night. I wanted to try to watch what I could of the first round of the draft. Thank you for liking the video, Eden, and hey there, Marcus. Glad you are here, but let's go ahead and talk about the first round of the draft. Number 1 overall pick, I don't think surprised anybody because there wasn't near as many quarterbacks this year as there normally is, but it was pretty obvious that Cam Ward was the most talented of the ones that did, enter the draft. And I still haven't figured out why people are surprised by Shedeur Sanders, whatever you want to call him. He's Deion Sanders' baby boy. And I don't mean baby as in youngest. I mean baby as in he's a baby. He's been coddled his whole life. He's a baby. He's very, very tiny. His arm strength is not very good. He had a terrible pro day. He just doesn't have a lot of great tools. And he spoiled all his life. And he is extremely, extremely ungrateful. So therefore, he would not be a good leader because he's always going to deflect blame to somebody else because nothing's ever his fault. So when you take all that into account and you look at it, his arm strength is not very good. His pro day was terrible. He's a spoiled, rotten brat. He's very entitled. Nothing is ever his fault. And his daddy won't shut up. And he's very small. Why did anybody think he was a first-round draft pick? If you thought that, you're out of your mind. Nothing about him says first-round draft pick. And people will take a chance on you with your off-the-field stuff if you're talented. But when you have off-the-field issues and you're not very talented, nobody is taking a chance on you. So if you're one of the people that was surprised by the fact that Shedeur Sanders did not go in the first round, you got to tell me what's wrong with you because something in your brain ain't working right. I do think he'll get picked eventually, Marcus, because, if you're not a very good football team, why would you not draft him? Because even if you draft him in the 6th round, he's not going to make near as much as he would make if he's a first-round draft pick. And if you draft him in the 6th round, people are not going to expect him to do a whole lot because you're just taking a chance on him. Whereas you draft him in the first round, this day and time, the way quarterbacks go in the first round and they start their first season, if you draft him in the first round, they're going to expect him to be the starter wherever he gets drafted and be the starter right away and be good right away. You draft him in the 6th round, if he's a backup all his life, it's perfectly fine. But I don't see anything about him that's appealing. He's tiny. He can't throw. He's entitled. His daddy won't shut up. His pro day was terrible. I just don't see it. Hey there, GWW. Glad to have you here. And I'll be honest with you, Marcus, the Browns do need him. But, the Browns right now are stuck because they've got Deshaun Watson, who is just flat out, he sucks. There's no other way to say it. He's terrible. And, of course, they tried to trade him, but that didn't work. And, of course, it didn't work. He ain't been no good in 5 years. And with the contract he's got, why in the world would anybody want to trade for him when he ain't been no good in 5 years? So now the Browns are stuck with Deshaun Watson. So they're going to have to make him be the starter at least for a while and try to make him get better. Otherwise, it looks like one of the dumbest contracts in the history of the NFL. And it does right now, but if all of a sudden Deshaun Watson comes out next year and throws 45 touchdowns, it looks better. But I'll go ahead and tell you now, that's not happening. So the Browns are going to try to make it work with Deshaun Watson, but it's not going to. But I'm not sure the Browns know what they're doing. You look at what the Browns did in the first round, and I'm not sure they know exactly what they're doing. And the Jets just signed some quarterbacks in the offseason, so I think the Jets think they have their quarterback. Now, whether they do or not, we'll find out. But when you go out and sign a couple of big-time free agent quarterbacks, you expect that, at least one of those two is going to be decent. Travis Hunter to the Jaguars. And I was honestly hoping for the Jaguars' sake that they would draft a wide receiver with that second pick. And I know Travis Hunter wants to play both sides of the ball, and he might play both sides of the ball on occasion. But I just don't see him being a full-time wide receiver and a full-time defensive back. I just don't see it. I think he'll be one or the other. Me personally, I would have him at defensive back. But whatever he is, I would have him, one or the other. And I wouldn't put him at the other position unless the game was on the line and he was trying to win the game for you on offense or win the game for you on defense. Otherwise, he wouldn't play 100 snaps a game. He's either going to play defensive back or he's going to play wide receiver. But I was hoping they would draft a full-time wide receiver because just like Deshaun Watson, so far, Trevor Lawrence has been an absolute complete bust. There's no other way to say it. He's been a bust. And, if you go out there and you draft running backs and you draft offensive linemen and you draft wide receivers and Trevor Lawrence is a flop, then you can say, okay, he's a flop. But when you're not trying to build around him and help him get better, then the Trevor supporters are going to come out and say, well, no wonder he sucks. He doesn't have anybody to throw the ball to. And they've got some good receivers, but nobody great. But I've watched Trevor Lawrence play, and when you're missing wide receivers all over the field, I don't care who's playing. They're not dropping the passes. You're not putting them where they should be. And I still think ETN's a pretty good running back, but I thought the Jaguars would draft either a full-time wide receiver or a tight end or something with that second pick. Abdul Carter goes third to the Giants. Will Campbell to the Patriots. And then, as I said, the Browns pick is Mason Graham with that 5th overall pick. And Mason Graham is a good piece. He's a nice player. But you just don't picture Mason Graham doing enough to warrant that 5th overall draft pick. Ashton Genty going to the Raiders, and the Raiders are slowly but surely building themselves a really good offense. Give them 3 or 4 years, and they might be really good on the offensive side of the ball. Armand Membu to the Jets. Titaro McMillan going 8th to the Panthers. Then we have Kelvin Banks Jr. and Colston Loveland rounding out the the top 10. Michael Williams to the 49ers. Tyler Booker, the Cowboys. Kenneth Grant, the Dolphins. And then I think the two picks that might be the steal, not just in the first round, but overall in the draft, we've got Tyler Warren going to the Colts, and we have Jalen Walker going to the Falcons. And of course, Falcons fans are all excited they drafted, Jalen Walker, and hopefully for the Falcons' sake it works out for them. But, you never can tell because, we see all the time these players that are so good in college and then they get, to the NFL and, they're decent, they're good, but, they're just not what they were supposed to be, with the predictions coming out of college. But the Falcons really ain't had no pass rush in about 5 years. So they need somebody to help with the pass rush. Now, it's funny because these Georgia players always want every player they have going to the Falcons, which I don't understand because I've said this numerous times. Everybody knows I'm a Clemson fan. I don't hide it. It's no secret. It's out there. But I don't follow any of the Clemson players once they leave Clemson and go to the NFL. I don't give a darn what team they go to. I don't have an NFL team, but if I did, I wouldn't care whether or not my NFL team drafted a Clemson player. Because just because he was good in college doesn't mean he's going to be good in the NFL. And, once these players, leave Clemson, to me, what they do or don't do in the NFL has nothing to do with college. They might be the greatest Clemson player of all time and get in the NFL and be a flop. But you know what? As a Clemson fan, they still did good in college, which means more to me. And I guess since the Falcons are in Georgia, they think that the Falcons should draft players from Georgia. The only problem is if you do that and then the guy is a failure, you're going to have some that's going to say, well, of course he's a failure. You don't draft homegrown players just because the guy played for Georgia don't mean he's going to be good, but that's just how fans are. Just like Tennessee fans have been up in arms for over a week now about the whole Nico Iamaleava thing. And all they're talking about now is, how he's going to be a flop with UCLA, and he may not. I don't know. But I guarantee you if Nico Iamaleava goes to the NFL and has a good decade as a good quarterback, you'll have Tennessee fans coming out and saying, oh, Nico, he's a VFL. He played for the Vols. But right now they're wanting to disown him. And Marcus, I do think the Falcons, need to get rid of Kirk Cousins. But at the same time, the Falcons were idiots for that whole situation because, Kirk Cousins has never been an amazing quarterback. He never did anything to warrant a $45 million a year contract. What was even dumber was the fact that, some people claim they had Cousins signed to a contract before they knew they were going to draft Penix, and some say they knew they were going to draft Penix before they signed Cousins. We'll never know what the truth is, but the point of the matter is you don't need both quarterbacks. If you really, truly knew you were going to sign Kirk Cousins before you drafted Michael Penix, you should have never drafted Michael Penix. And if you knew for sure that you were going to draft Michael Penix, you should have never signed Kirk Cousins because you don't need two starting quarterbacks. And this day and time in the NFL, it used to be, even if you were a first-round draft pick as a quarterback, you were expected to sit on the bench 2 or 3 years and learn from the starter. But now, the game's changed so much. If you're a quarterback now and you go in the first round, you're expected to start right away. So the Falcons knew when they drafted Michael Penix Jr. in the top 10 that the fans are going to want him to start right away. Why do you need Penix and Cousins both? You don't. So whether it's true or not, they signed Cousins first, or whether it's true or not, they knew they were going to draft Penix before they signed Cousins. It doesn't matter. The point is, whichever one you did first should have made the other one obsolete. There's no way you draft Penix if you're going to sign Cousins. There's no way you sign Cousins if you draft Penix. So whichever one came first doesn't matter. It should have made the other one obsolete. So they made themselves look stupid because now you sign Cousins, you start him, and everybody wonders, why did you draft Michael Penix to put him on the bench? Well, you draft Michael Penix and you put him on the bench, and then everybody wonders why you signed Kirk Cousins to a $45 million contract as your starter. Well, you start Michael Penix, then they wonder, why are you paying a guy $45 million to sit on the bench? But Kirk Cousins never did anything to warrant a $45 million contract. Nothing whatsoever. And now that he was so awful this past year, I don't know if a team is going to go out and want to trade for him because he was terrible. But at the same time, if you're the Falcons, you don't want to cut him because then you're eating almost $200 million. And that makes you look like even bigger buffoons than you were before you had the whole Penix Cousins thing in the first place. And I do think, Marcus, that Michael Penix is going to be the starter going forward. I don't know if Michael Penix is ready yet. He's still going to have some growing pains and make a lot of mistakes. But I would still think that I personally would take a growing Michael Penix before I would take Kirk Cousins. Nothing Kirk Cousins has ever done since he's been in the league has ever impressed me. He's always put up good numbers against sucky teams and put up bad numbers against good teams. He plays good in day games and plays like crap in night games. He's done that for 10 years. Nothing's changed. Why they thought he was worth that kind of money, I don't know. I know they done it because they panicked thinking, oh no, he's available. We need a quarterback. If we don't pay him, somebody else will. But I would start Luke McCown before I would start Kirk Cousins. Then we have Walter Nolan, Shamar Stewart, Gray Zabel, Emeka Egbuka, and Jahdae Barron picks 16 through 20. And the funny thing about that number 20 pick was the Broncos, they drafted Jahdae Barron, but the Broncos need a running back, and they didn't draft Omarion Hampton. And then Omarion Hampton goes 2 picks later to the Chargers, and the Chargers didn't need a running back. So the Broncos need a running back, and they passed on Omarion Hampton, and the Chargers don't need one, and they drafted one. I think they know that you can't let Omarion Hampton get away. He's a good player. In between Jahdae Barron and Omarion Hampton, we have the 21st overall pick, the Steelers, Derek Harmon. And we have Matthew Golden. The Vikings get Donovan Jackson. The Giants, Jackson Dart. The Falcons, James Pierce Jr. And the last pick we'll talk about, Baltimore Ravens. First round, number 27 overall, Malachi Starks. Now, like I said, I might come back on here and do a second round run through, and I might just come back on here and just talk about some of the notable players, because this year the draft just wasn't as deep as it normally is. Normally you see guys, still getting picked in the third or fourth round because there's just so much deep talent, and this year there's just not. Any thoughts on any of this, please feel free to let me know. Let's go ahead and get our dad joke of the day in here. In a recent study, it has been proven that 9 out of 10 people who are afraid of hurdles never get over it. And that does it for today's Ref Brandon and the Todd Family YouTube video. Until next time, it's Ref Brandon saying, just like in pro wrestling, life can be over by the count of 3. Tell your friends and family how much you love them. Bye.